Hello world, Dinomega here. In this video, I will walk you through how to set up a pawn to use the equipment system that comes with my Unreal Engine inventory system. We are going to use Quinn, the default pawn in the third-person project template. You can follow along with Quinn, or you can use your own pawn instead. For testing, we are going to use equipment provided with the demo content of the asset. If you do not have it in your project anymore, or if you want to learn how to create your own equipment, check the Create New Equipment chapter in the documentation. We are also going to use the default equipment slots that come with the system. These are the same slots used by the demo world character. If you want to change these or learn how to add your own equipment slots, check the equipment slots chapter in the documentation. For this video, we are going to pick up where the quick setup guide leaves off. So if you have not finished the quick setup guide yet, go ahead and complete that first, then come back to this video. When you are ready, open your pawn blueprint. If you are not sure which pawn your game is using, open your game mode, then look for the default pawn class. If you are not sure which game mode your level is using, open the level, then open world settings, and check the game mode override. From there, you can see the pawn that is assigned, and you can open it from that list. The equipment system needs a way to talk to your pawn. It asks your pawn things like which skeletal mesh to use and which socket to attach a piece of equipment to. It does that through a blueprint interface. First, we will add that interface to the pawn. On the toolbar, click Class Settings. Under Implemented Interfaces, click Add, then select BPI Equipment Pawn. After you add it, you will see new functions and events appear under Interfaces in the My Blueprint panel. These are the hooks the equipment system and the equipment handlers call during the equipment lifecycles. If your pawn does not implement this interface, those calls do nothing. By implementing it, you give your pawn a chance to respond to those calls and control how equipment behaves on your character. Next, I will give you a quick one-line explanation for each function and event. If you want deeper details later, you can check the pawn setup chapter in the equipment documentation. Play equipment montage. This event is used when an equipment handler wants your pawn to play an animation montage, such as a melee swing or range weapon reload. Equipment action. This event is used when an equipment handler wants your pawn to perform an equipment action. In the demo, we use this to activate and cancel the aiming mode of our range weapons. Get equipment stance. This is a helper function you can optionally use in your animation blueprint to get the current equipment stance from your pawn. Change equipment stance to. The equipment system calls this one when it detects your stance should change based on the equipment you have equipped. You can use this to save the stance into a variable on your pawn. Then your animation blueprint can read that value and use it to drive stance-based blend spaces. Can equip this is called whenever something is about to be equipped. It gives you a chance to add your own rules before the equip happens. For example, you could block equipment that requires a certain level or only allow equipment for a specific character class. Get modular unequipped mesh is used for modular equipment. Here you return the default mesh for a slot when nothing is equipped. Think of it as the mesh you want to show for the empty state. Get leader pose component. This is used when you have skeletal mesh equipment that should follow the animations of another mesh on your pawn. Here you return the mesh component that the equipment should follow. Get mirror targets. This is used if you want a piece of equipment to also appear in other places on the pawn. For example, you might mirror it to another socket or even attach it to a different mesh. Here you return the extra target locations. getEquipTarget is where you tell the equipment system which mesh and which socket to use for each equipment slot. If you are more of a hands-on learner, make sure you check out the demo character in the demo folder of the asset. The demo pawn uses just about all of the functions and events mentioned to provide the demo world experiences. For the basic pawn setup we are doing in this video, we are only going to need to work with the getEquipTarget function and the play equipment montage event. Let's start off with the getEquipTarget function. This function is the one the equipment system calls when it is equipping something, and it needs to know which component to use and which socket to attach to. The system passes in two inputs when it makes the call to this function, the equipment slot and the equipment slot index. The equipment slot is an enum value, and it comes from what you set on the item in your equipment data table. The docs include an equipment slot chapter, so if you want to add more equipment slots, make sure you check that out. The equipment slot index is an optional offset, and it is also set on the item in the equipment data table. The index is useful when you want an alternate target for the same slot. For example, imagine a melee weapon and a bow. Both are main hand equipment, but you might want the bow to attach to the left hand, while your melee weapon attaches to the right hand. In that case, you keep the slot the same and use the index to switch which hand, or which socket, the equipment should use. For the return value, we return a target, which is a struct. Drag off from the target pin and search for make, then choose make equipment pawn target. That will expose the fields inside the struct. Is modular. Set this to true if the slot is using modular equipment. If it is false, which is the default, the slot is treated as attachment equipment. With modular equipment, the system replaces the mesh on the component you return. Whereas with attachment equipment, the system attaches a separate mesh onto a socket on the component you return. Scene component. This is the component you want the system to use for this slot. For attachment equipment, this is the mesh component you are attaching to. For modular equipment, this is the mesh component whose mesh will be replaced. Socket name is the socket on the mesh that we want to attach our equipment mesh to. Relative transform lets you optionally adjust the final position, rotation, or scale in case you cannot get the result you want by editing the socket itself. Now that you know what this function does, we will start with an easy one, the helmet slot. Select your skeletal mesh component, then using the Details panel, find the skeletal mesh asset and open it. In the skeletal tree, find the head bone, right-click on it, and then choose Add Socket. Unreal will create a new socket, usually with a name like Head Socket. Next, we want to position that socket, and the easiest way to do that is with a preview mesh. Right-click the socket, choose Add Preview Asset, then search for your helmet and select it. Now you can move and rotate the socket until the helmet looks correct. For this helmet, we want the smiley face on the front, and we want it upright. When you are happy with the placement, right-click the socket and choose Remove All Attached Assets. Then make sure you save the skeleton. Now that the socket is ready, we need to tell the equipment system to use it. We do that in the getEquipTarget function, so let's go back there now. Starting from the top, since this is not modular equipment, we leave is modular set to false. For scene component, drag your mesh component into the graph and plug it into the scene component pin. Next we have the socket name. Now you might be wondering how exactly are we going to return a different socket for each of our equipment slots using just this one function. There are actually a few different ways you can handle it. My preference is using a select node. Drag off from the socket name pin, search for select, and choose the regular select node. Do not choose the select name node, you need the plain select node. The select node lets us plug something into the wildcard to generate the different input options for whatever the select node's output is connected to. For our needs, connect the equipment slot input from the event to the select wildcard pin. The select node will update and it will give us an option for each value in the equipment slot enumeration. This lets you return a different socket name for each slot. For the head slot, set the value to head socket. This is a good time to test it. Drag in a copy of the BP Interactable Item Pickup Blueprint. You can find it in the Blueprints Interactables folder. With it selected, go to the Details panel and set item row name to helmet_smile. Press play, pick up the helmet, then open the equipment window and equip it into the correct slot. If everything is set up right, you should see the helmet appear on your pawn. If you do not see it, or if it is in the wrong spot, go back to getEquipTarget and check a few things. Make sure your mesh component is connected to the scene component pin. The head equipment slot option on the select node should be set to your head socket. Also, double check that the socket name matches the socket name you added to the skeleton. Next, we will set up the main hand slot. This is the slot used for weapons, like the bat axe. By default, main hand equipment is equipped through the hotbar. If you prefer, you can change it so the main hand equips through the equipment window instead, and the documentation shows exactly how to do that. For this video, we will stick with the default setup, where main hand equipment equips through the hotbar. Head back to the skeleton and let's set up a socket for the main hand. It looks like mine already comes with one on the hand _R called handgrip_R. If you don't see it, go ahead and add a new one. Next, add the bat axe as a preview asset, just like we did for the helmet, and then tweak the position and rotation until you are happy with it. When you're finished, right-click the socket and choose Remove All Attached Assets to clear the preview mesh, then save the skeleton. Go back to the getEquipTarget function, and for the main hand option on your select node, set the socket name. For me, that socket is called handgrip_R. To test, duplicate your item pickup and change the row name to bat_axe. Now press play, then pick up the item and equip it to the hotbar. Then select the hotbar slot by pressing the key binding or using the mouse wheel. You should see the bat axe in your pawn's hand. If the placement is a little off, you have two easy fixes. If it is off for most weapons, tweak the socket on the skeleton. If it is only off for one specific item, adjust the pivot on that equipment mesh instead. While the bat axe is equipped, you might notice that left click and right click do not swing yet. That is normal right now because we have not set up the pawn to play the swing animation. We will tackle that next. Before we move on, this is a good time to set up any other default equipment slots you want to use. Just repeat the same flow we used for helmet and main hand. Next, I'm going to show you how to set up the melee weapon animations, which is what our bat axe is using. If you want to see examples for the other weapon types, check out the demo pawn. It includes setups for playing different animations for all of the demo weapons. Let's jump right in. In the My Blueprint panel, under Interfaces, double-click Play Equipment Montage. That will add the event to your blueprint graph. This event gives you a few inputs: a reference to the equipment handler, the equipment event enumeration, the equipment slot, the equipment stance value for the item that triggered it, and the equipment row name. For melee weapons, we only really need two of them: equipment event and equipment slot. Drag off the equipment slot pin, search for and choose switch. This gives us a separate execution path for each equipment slot. Melee weapons use the main hand, so we are going to use the main hand path. Next, we are going to create a map variable to hold our melee animations. If you've never used a map variable, it is like a lookup table, or often referred to as a key value pair. Instead of one variable type, we define two, the key left and the value right. To use map variables, we typically provide the key, and in return it provides us the value associated with that key. If you need a way to associate values of one data type to the values of another data type, the map variable is your friend. Go ahead and create a new variable. I'm calling mine melee animations. I'm going to then set the type to equipment action. Next, change the variable to a map. This will convert the original type we selected to our key, and now we can define the type for our value, which first will be animation montage object. Compile and save. Then select the new variable and add a new element to the map. Set the key to equipping. The equipping action fires right at the start, which is what we want for the animation. If you accidentally choose equip instead, you may notice a small delay before the animation starts. For the value, we pick the animation montage we want to play. I'm going to use the one from the included demo content, Equip montage. Also worth noting, the animations I am using from the demo content were designed for the default pawn skeleton, so if your pawn uses a different skeleton, you will either need to use your own animations or you will need to retarget the ones I provided. Now add another element to the map. Set the key to Unequip. For the value, I am using Equip montage again. Add another element. For this one, set the key to melee primary. This is the left click swing. For the value, choose swing fast montage. Add one more element. Set the key to melee secondary. This is the right-click heavy swing. For the value, choose swing montage. Now drop your melee animations variable into the graph and choose get. Then drag off from it and select find. Connect the equipment event input from play equipment montage into the find node. We only want this to run for the main hand, and only if we actually found a montage to play. So from the main hand execution path on our switch, create a branch. Plug the found Boolean output from the find node into the branch condition. Then from the true execution path, make a call to play montage. Drag in a reference to your mesh and connect it to the skeletal mesh component input pin. Then connect the find node's value into the montage to play input. Press play and test it out. Right now when we swing, we hear it, but we don't see it. That is expected, as there is one more thing we need to set up, and that is to allow our pawn to play montages played through the upper body slot. And we do that in the pawn's animation blueprint. This is a small change, and I will walk you through it step by step. Go ahead and open the animation blueprint for your pawn. An easy way to find it is to select your mesh component, then on the details panel, look for the animation class, then open it. In the graph, find your main state machine and drag off its output. Search for save cached pose and add it. Give it a name. I will call mine main states. From the slot node's source input, drag off and choose Use Cached Pose, then pick the name you just created. For me, that was main states. Drag off from the control rig output and search for Layered Blend per Bone. Next, duplicate the Use Cached Pose node and the slot node it is connected to. On the duplicated slot node, go to the Details panel and change the slot name to the upper body slot. Connect the output of that upper body slot node into Blend Poses 0 on the Layered Blend per Bone node. Now select the Layered Blend per Bone node and from the Details panel, expand Layer Setup. Under Branch Filters, add an element. Set Bone Name to Spine _01 and set Blend Depth to 1. You should now see the equipping animation, and you should see the swing animations when you press left click and right click. If you still do not see any animations, the most common reason is a skeleton mismatch. If your pawn uses a different skeleton than the one the demo animations were created for, those montages will not play. In that case, you will need to either retarget the ones I included or use your own animations. One more quick note. Right now we are using the same montage for equipping and unequipping, so the unequip event can look a little odd. A simple fix is to play that montage backwards. If you want to set that up, look at the getAnimationFloat's collapsed graph in the demo world character in the section where playEquipMontage is called. You can copy that collapsed graph into your pawn, then hook it up the same way. After that, press play and test again. You should now see the Unequip play the equipping animation in reverse, which gives a much nicer result. And just to recap, if you have a dedicated Unequip montage, you do not need the play backwards logic. We only do this when we reuse the equipping montage for Unequip. One thing to keep in mind, the equipment stance provided through play equipment montage is tied to the specific item that triggered the request. It is not the final calculated stance for your character. So if you plan to store a stance value for your animation blueprint, do not save it from here. Instead, save it when change equipment Equipment Stance 2 is called. Now, when it comes to changing your character's stance animations, that is more on the animation side of Unreal and is beyond the scope of this asset. For my asset, the important part is that getEquipTarget Stance 2 gives you the stance value you need to drive your own animation logic. If you want a starting point, take a look at the demo pawn and its animation blueprint. My example there is meant to be simple and easy to follow, even if you are new to animation blueprints. I am not an animation expert, and if you want the best results, it can really help to consult with one. That is the basic setup needed for equipping equipment to your pawn using the included equipment system. The other functions and events in the interface are optional, and they are used by some of the extra features. If you have questions about setting up equipment on your pawn and you can't find answers in the documentation, feel free to reach out. Thanks for watching, and good luck with your game.